Hey,
What's up?
Kyle's got you on the full screen. At least
Me?
my full screen is you. Oh, he just did something different. There you go. Now you're where you're supposed to be.
I see 12 participants at the moment. I'm going to give it another minute.
Oh, let me put you at full screen.
Okay, it's about to, according to my clock, it's about to click over to 7:03, so I will start the meeting. Welcome to the GBOS regular meeting. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors, its committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25 Public Meetings. I call this meeting to order. We'll do the roll call. My name is Mike Edgington. I am the co-chair and land use supervisor. And Jerry?
My name is Jerry Fox, and I am also co-chair and public safety supervisor.
Aaron?
Aaron Boone, Fire Department Supervisor.
And James?
James Glover, Roads and Utilities.
Okay. I think you've all had a chance to look at the agenda. Do you have any disclosures on any matters in front of us?
I do not.
I do not.
No.
I don't hear any. I see item number 9. My spouse is listed as one of the presenters, so I guess I have at least perceived conflict of interest.
Well, I will rule on that as co-chair and not believe that you have any financial or other big gains to be made out of having a garden. So I don't think it rises to the level of a conflict.
Okay, unless anyone has any dissent, we'll move on to the next item. Agenda revisions and approvals. Today's regular meeting, I see it says May 17th there, but today's regular meeting agenda. Any changes?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor, voice vote, I think.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that passes 4-0. April 20th, a regular meeting minutes approval.
I'll make a motion to approve April 20th meeting minutes.
Second.
And I think we can do this as voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, 4-0.
Hi, Gary.
Sorry, 4-0, thank you. April 27th, GBOS special meeting on the budget review and GBS roles.
Make
I
a
have
motion.
one change
Oh,
to that. Let's see. Where it talks about the repaving project. It's on, let's see, what page is it on? Page 2 of those minutes. It says 2020 fewer summer projects, it starts with, and it says 3 lines below that, it says consider 2020 repave of Alyeska Highway. It should be Arlberg there.
Ah, yes.
Got it.
good catch.
Okay. Subject to that adjustment, do I hear a motion in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Sounded like 4-0. And our May 14th GBOS special meeting regarding CT approval of those minutes, which are very short.
Make a motion to approve the May 14th special meeting minutes.
Do we hear a second?
It's got to be you,
James.
I
James.
second the motion.
Thank you. And those who are present at the meeting, we can vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I think that was 3-0. Thank you. Announcements. Public is encouraged to ask questions and provide comment. Please raise your hand either through the raise hand function in Zoom or visually if you're on the screen, and wait to be acknowledged. And if you're not contributing, if you're not actually conversing as part of conversation, please stay on mute. GBOS non-profit recreation grant application cycle is open from May the 1st through June the 19th. Applications are available online at the GBOS website or via email from Margaret. We're going to introductions, presentations, and reports. I see Chris Schutte from the Muni is on the line. Would you like to give us an update on the municipality's COVID-19 response?
Yeah, good morning, gosh, what a day. Good
I think that answers the question. Some questions.
Thank you. I'm not turning on my camera at this moment, so you don't see me sitting in my car. I'm at a social function and came out to join you all tonight. I have got a short update. I wanted to cover 2 items. One is sort of the broad COVID-19 items, and then the second is give an update to GBOS on an item that you've been tracking related to some zoning issues in the Girdwood area. I'll start with the COVID-19 update. So for those of you that are following along, both the state and the municipality are about a week actually into our phase 2 plan for reopening both the state of
Oh no. Did I disconnect? Oh no.
our retail stores and our restaurants and others to things, social gatherings and organized sports and things of that nature. All of the decisions on when to move through the various phases are made after evaluating the public health data that's available, both from the state perspective, but also, and more important, I think, to us is the municipal perspective. We do those evaluations and updates on our current public health status on Fridays. And if you haven't spent the time doing so, we provide weekly briefings on this matter at noon, roughly at noon every week on Fridays, where we give the latest status report on the public health measures. Public health wise, we're continuing to do very well. Thank you to everyone who's being responsible and conscientious during this time, following the physical distancing protocols, the facial covering protocols, and probably most importantly, the hand washing protocols that are important to flattening the curve in COVID-19. We will continue to evaluate the public health process in conjunction with our partners at the state, and where appropriate, move the dimmer switch to a setting that's a little bit higher, potentially in the next couple of weeks here, as we transition into what could be a phase 3. Throughout all of this, please keep in mind that it is entirely possible that we will begin to see negative signs in the public health measures, that we will have to ask ourselves the question, okay, is this particular metric now dangerous and we need to consider going back a step? We haven't seen that yet. In fact, to be brutally honest, we haven't seen much of any bad news in the past couple of weeks. The case counts continue to be really low. The community transmissions continue to be really low. And of course, the ever important hospital capacity and PPE supplies, et cetera, continue to trend very well. So we're feeling like people are continuing to do the right thing, and we would encourage everyone to continue that trend. There are a couple of areas that I want to highlight that are of particular interest to Girdwood. One is phase 2 saw the reopening of things like bars. So to the extent that some of your watering holes down south have been closed, they now have criteria on how they can open and operate safely. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't been in Girdwood since phase 2 started, so I can't tell you who's open and who's not, but that's for your general awareness. And then, of course, some of the other facilities that are now allowed to operate and open in phase 2 probably don't apply directly to Girdwood, but they are of interest anyway, and that runs the gamut from theaters to bowling alleys and bingo halls. And last time I checked, Girdwood didn't have a bingo hall, but maybe I'm wrong. Organized sports is another one. It's been a hot topic here in the Anchorage Bowl, and I suspect in Girdwood too. We're in our precious spring and summer months, so those of you that have children like mine that are parts of organized sports, they're hankering to get out and do the things they love. There are safety protocols in place now that guide the activities of organized sports. It is going to be a little bit different than you're used to, as you can imagine, in a pandemic time. But by and large, I think that the guidance that both the state and the city have issued collectively will help pave the way for our little leagues, our soccer leagues, and for my 2 girls for swimming to restart. All of this information is available on the municipal website. When you go to muni.org, there is a giant button at the top of the page that says COVID-19. And that takes you to the central hub, if you will, of everything COVID-19 related for the municipality, everything from the emergency orders to the topics I just covered, the protocols on safely reopening various businesses. Please feel free to explore and familiarize yourself. And as always, if there are questions, either from GBOS members, community members, or Girdwood area businesses, there is a way to reach out and ask those questions on that website, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Moving on to item number 2, this is the land use issue, the zoning issue that came up. As you probably are aware, since you passed a resolution supporting this change, there is an interesting zoning artifact in the Girdwood Commercial 10 district, or the GC10, that precludes the mobile food kiosk business type from operating there. We don't, in consulting with planning, we don't have a lot of visibility into how or why that ever came to be. There doesn't seem to be a lot of at least legislative or planning history attached to this particular prohibition on mobile food kiosks, but it is a problem, we think, because it artificially limits what should be a use type that is available for entrepreneurs and has to come through the planning department for site plan review. Girdwood Brewing, which recently went through a conditional use permit approval process, did depict on its plans for that conditional use permit a site for a mobile food kiosk or a food truck operation. And the Planning and Zoning Commission did approve that conditional use permit, understanding that at some point when mobile food kiosks were allowed use in the GC10, that Girdwood Brewing would fire that up. I think probably now more so than ever, we recognize that this is an important issue, a timely issue, given the economic uncertainty that Girdwood and the rest of the municipality are facing. And so in order to help mitigate that challenge, we are bringing forward a zoning change through the assembly. Introduction will be tomorrow night, and the goal is to add mobile food kiosks as a permissible use in the GC10. It will have to go through a administrative site plan review, but that will still allow as particularly the Girdwood Brewing business, but of course others located in the GC10, if they choose to do so, the ability to fire up a mobile food kiosk. I know that it's been probably, I think it's 6 months almost since you passed your resolution on this matter. And I apologize for that delay, but we wanted to come back to you, give you a heads up that this issue is moving forward. It is not moving forward in the traditional manner that zoning code changes do go forward, because frankly, by the time we got it through the normal Planning and Zoning Commission process, summer would be over, and this would be an issue to celebrate next year. I think time is of the essence in this one, and your assembly members, Weddleton and LaFrance, have agreed to it, and so you will see an ordinance on the agenda tomorrow night for introduction from all three of us. And at that, Mr. Chairman, I'm here for questions.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for fast tracking, if that's the right term, the change to GC10 food trucks. That's something I think the community appreciates. Any other questions from the board? Okay, not hearing any. I actually do have a question. The case counts were very low, and they're slightly ticking up the last few days, and I think that would kind of be expected. I think we were all led to expect that the case counts would go up as we open, but they're a lagging indicator. So what are you, from a municipal point of view, what's sort of the point at which you're going to think, maybe we do need to dial things back, or rather than keep going forwards?
Yeah, great question, Mike. And I find that this is something that even myself, I lose sight of, because I closely track the reports on positive cases, much like you do. And I think it's important to remember that the public health decisions that are being made are based on multiple variables, not just the case count. And so the approach to flattening the curve has never been about getting to zero, at least not until we know there's a vaccine. In these days, what we're focusing on is flattening the healthcare demand curve to the extent that we can. In other words, keep the case counts low so that the healthcare system can accommodate those who do contract the virus, with the understanding that it's not realistic to expect that we have a sustained period of zero cases, at least pre-vaccine. What is the magic sauce or the secret sauce to us saying, whoa, pump the brakes, we need to go back a step? There's not an easy answer to that, but I can tell you that it is a combination of not only the case count metric that you highlighted, the community transmission metric, or the R0, as a lot of people refer to it. It's also the healthcare capacity, how many ICU beds are available versus free or taken, what's the ventilator status, what's the PPE status, et cetera. So there's a number of variables that play into that, and typically it will not be any one single metric that triggers a dial back. It will have to be some combination thereof. But we are closely tracking that as we see case counts come in. We're paying, at this point, particular attention to case counts where it is somebody in a community other than Anchorage, but we know they either traveled through Anchorage or they have been sent back to Anchorage for their isolation and quarantine period.
Okay, I have a sort of related follow-up. So far, I think the state and the municipality have been pretty, not quite lockstep, but very close in terms of the policies they've been pushing. Do you see any possibility of divergence in the future?
I do think that's possible. We've been trying to minimize the confusion of the public by ensuring that the state policies line up, or that the municipal policies line up fairly closely to the state policies, but they haven't in every case, and they likely won't in every case, simply because the state is dealing with all of Alaska. We're dealing very specifically with Anchorage. There are conditions about Anchorage that are very different than the rest of the state. We're the population center. We are sort of the densest area of the state, and we have the ground zero, or the landing point, for the majority of people traveling to and from other locations within the state. So we have a number of variables that are unique to Anchorage and the municipality at large that I think will always keep us aware of the need to be slightly divergent from our friends at the state. I don't see a world where we're diametrically opposed. And I think there's two reasons for that, Mike. The first is what I just described, but also, frankly, the health metrics of both the state of Alaska and Anchorage itself are trending roughly the same. We're both doing fairly well. We have seen success in the mitigation efforts at the state level and the city level, and I think as long as that continues, we will likely be very closely aligned.
Thank you. I mean, I agree. I think the state has done very well. The state and the municipality has done very well so far. It's when you compare it to other parts of the country, and in fact other parts of the world, I think I'm very happy with our local leadership. I'm going to see if anybody else has any questions. I see Josh Hegner has his hand up.
Yeah, hey, hopefully everybody can hear me. And Chris,
Yes.
I just wanted to say to you and the mayor's office, really appreciate you guys expediting this. It doesn't just impact our business. It's for local Girdwood businesses that we want to put back to work. So thank you for getting that moving on. So I appreciate it. Signing out.
You're welcome. Thank you, Josh.
Any other questions from any members of the public on the call? Right, I'm not hearing any. So again, thank you very much for your time, Chris. I appreciate you keeping us up to date every month. It's great. I think the communication efforts have been very good overall, and this is an extra special one for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I am going to jump out of the meeting at this point, Mike. So if you have any other questions that come up, feel free to reach out to me or through Kyle.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to item number 2, which is an update on Girdwood Valley Service Area summer employment. I think this is yours, Kyle.
Yes. So we just want to keep you informed that we are working through the process with the municipality and the HR department to get the jobs posted. We're going much faster than they normally go to get positions posted here. And this is in response to the fact that with COVID, we couldn't bring our 2 interns in through the Student Conservation Association program this year, just because we didn't have housing for them. And so through working with the GVOS, we have combined our usual seasonal part-time position and are looking to hire 2 full-time positions with the funding we had available. So this week, we're hoping to get those out on the street. We got a confirmation today from HR that they are going to post those at some point this week. And we have several people in the community who are interested in applying. So once we get it out there, we'll let the community know.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none. Any questions from the community? Just a reminder, if you're connecting via the phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself, and I think it's *9 to raise your hand. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so either people are speaking to mute or there are no questions. Give it another second or two. Okay. We'll move on to item number 3, legislative report. I don't see anyone logged in via computer representing Jennifer Johnson, Kathy Giesel, John Weddleton, or Susanna France. Is anyone on the phone? I'm not hearing anything on the legislative report side. So we'll move on. If anyone joins, we can come back to this. Item 4, supervisor reports. We'll start with public safety, Jerry.
I don't really have anything. I've been out of town for last week. Kyle, do you know of any issues coming up with the chief or anything with Whittier?
No, he did provide us a police report for the April stats, so we have that. Andre, are you here?
Yes, I am. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Do you want to give an update on what's been going on?
I submitted just the stats for April of 2020. It came in late, but I just sent it out to Margaret, so I'm not sure you got it. But for the month of April, there are roughly 40 calls for service in the Girdwood area. We had some from traffic stops, security checks. There's a lot of welfare checks going on for park areas, people camping in areas they're not supposed to be, kids skateboarding in areas just to maintain some of the social distancing stuff. So our primary areas roughly had 9 traffic stops or traffic type vehicle violations, suspicious vehicles. 4 suspicious activities, 1 property offense, 6 disturbances or assaults, 10 welfare checks, 8 others. Others fall in from process services to some agency assists in that area. This month, we had some concerns for some local citizens in Girdwood for the Crow Creek area, so we stepped up our enforcement in that area. And it was earlier, I believe about 2 weeks ago, we got a call from the local residents again, concerned about vehicle traffic going through that area. When I talked to the complainant as well, they were going to maybe pose an idea or contact DOT or get with GBOS to see if they would support like speed bumps or something of that nature on Crow Creek Road, even though that's DOT's road. I advise the person that Whittier Police Department would support those efforts. Other than that, I would like to thank the Muni through their assistance for the month of April. We were able to lodge an officer in Girdwood. So for their 12-hour shift, they pretty much stayed in Girdwood, and their on-call status off shift, they remained in Girdwood as well. So for most of the month of April, Girdwood had some really good coverage. Since then, that program has stopped. So we're maintaining officers in Whittier since they are separate rooms for them to stay, more for safety precautions due to COVID going on right now. In the past, we allowed officers to stay in the substation, but since that's a more public contact area, I felt that it was in the best interest to have them have their own rooms in Whittier. So with that, we're just maintaining our current flow of officers. We had some officers that got injured this month, but they was off for a day and came back. We still have 1 officer that was injured from last year, still on injury on the list there. Included, and also in April, we hired a full-time temp officer, Officer Tom Harris, who worked for Whittier Police Department about 2 years ago. He has some experience not only with Whittier, but I believe he worked for Airport Police as well as I believe it was Ketchikan Police Department, either Ketchikan or Kodiak. But other than that, we're maintaining status quo, trying to solicit and recruit some other officers to fill our 1 full-time position we have.
Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions?
I have one, and it's really not for the chief, it's for Kyle. And Kyle, I see you're muted. So Kyle and I were going to work on lowering the speed limit with the DOT. And we kind of dropped that, I think. We got to bring that back up again.
Yeah, I think we need to get back with Scott Thomas on that and follow up. I don't know what happened with the letter that GBOS sent, so I don't think we ever receive a response from them.
So can you contact him?
Yes, I'll put that on the list. I'm actually working with him right now. We're working on the stencils for the bike path out improvements, so I can follow up with him on that.
Thank you. And then just a comment, the town square looks good, so the parking must be working. Kyle, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, we're trying to keep up with it. But people, I think, during this COVID period haven't been as active there as it has been in the past.
That's all I had, Mike.
I'm just going to make a comment that, sorry.
Sorry.
Somebody else? Aaron.
Sorry, Jerry, when you said speed limit, you were referring to Crow Creek Road. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So elsewhere, the connectors onto Crow Creek, onto Alyeska Highway are generally 20 miles an hour. And then the roads, the back roads which are not connected are 25. So I think there is definitely an argument for a reduction of the speed limit to one of those two. I think you could argue 20 miles an hour during the through the first part.
Thinking about it, the last we had heard from DOT was that they were going to do a study on that. So that's usually the way they work. They want to do a study before they make an action. So I'll follow up to see if they're going to conduct that study this summer, which would probably be putting sensors out there and doing that as that. So I'll find out what's going on.
That's my recollection of the last time I spoke to Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you. The only comment I had is I was looking back at some the numbers from Whittier Police Department back in sort of December, January, and it's just striking how few issues and issues there are now compared to back then. It just seems so much quieter. Is that's your sense, Chief?
Andre, you might have to unmute.
Andre.
Okay, I'm not sure if you hear me. Yes,
Yes.
Our calls for service did drop, and I think it's because a lot of people are hunkering down, remaining at home. But and then when I was looking at the individual categories, like some of the other ones increased because as our calls for service dropped there, some, I guess people that have properties out there with alarms going off, those like alarm type calls went up, welfare checks went up a little bit more. But, and including with some of the issues, it was while we're investigating something else, we noticed later in the evenings, people are starting camping out in parks and stuff like that, that they shouldn't be. So we went around, did more contact with them for trespassing and parking issues. So, but it has dropped. Hopefully it stays that way, but either way, we just ask people if they see anything that they need our assistance, please call.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the public? Okay, we'll move on to roads and utilities. James.
I don't have any further things to add. Just good work to Kyle and the crew out. They've been doing a great job. I have had some comments about Garmisch, but I think we've been trying to wrestle that as it comes up. And they're working on getting the dust mitigation out on the roads, and they're doing a great job. Thanks, Kyle.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there anything you wanted to add, Kyle, to the roads and utilities?
No, we're just working through, as James said, we're working through dust mitigation and spring grading of all the roads, and we'll probably have a pause here as we have the wet weather coming through. So we'll just work in between and take care of it. But we appreciate everybody's patience as we're trying to get through all the roads and take care of their dusty situation.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? And hearing none, any questions from the public? Okay, we'll keep making progress. Parks and Recreation Cemetery. Jerry is temporarily taking over for this as well.
I don't really have anything to update you on. I've been out
Okay.
of town.
Again, Kyle, do you have any highlights or things to comment on about Parks and Recreation?
Since the last meeting, parks have been reopened to the public. We definitely encourage people to keep their social distancing while they're out there. The campground has reopened and is now fully serviced over there, and our campground host has moved into the park, Emily Maxwell, and she moved in this weekend. So we are moving along and getting operations as normal. For reservations of like the pavilions and things like that, there is a protocol. If people do want to reserve that, there's actually a lengthy operation plan they need to fill out to say how they will mitigate the spread of COVID. And so, so we're working through that, trying to figure out that permitting process now.
Okay, so I do have a question, well, two questions. The first one is, while outdoor facilities are back open, I assume the community room is not. Do we have a time scale for the community room reopening?
The community room will follow probably the lead of the library, because we will work in tandem. The problem is that opening the community room just opens the general bathrooms to the public, and so a cleaning plan and things like that need to be put in place. So most likely with phase 3, it looks like the library will reopen, and at that point we will have the community room open at the same time.
Okay, and my other question on Parks and Recreation is for those of you who read Anchorage Daily News, you'll be aware that there was an article about the hand tram unlikely to be opening this year. Do you have any comments on that, Kyle?
Yes, due to the delays with COVID, if you read that article and the update that we sent out to the board, was the fact that we were ready to go. We had all those enhancements, safety enhancements, and ready for the municipality leadership administration to review. Actually, the day we were supposed to meet with them, the response started for COVID, and all unnecessary meetings were canceled. And so at that point, we've been on delay since then, and now we've fallen behind with getting approvals in order to do construction or improvements out there at the hand tram to open it on a regular schedule. And then there's also a concern that it is a place of concentration, that a lot of people could come together there. It's got a lot of touch and surface points there. And so at this point, we will keep it closed, most likely until we can make those improvements out there. And then, which most likely means it probably won't open this summer unless we're able to push forward. We're going to re-examine in early June with the administration to see if they have the time to review these improvements with us.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, any questions from the public? Give you a couple of seconds to unmute. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. So let's move on to the fire department. Erin.
I don't have much to update on. The fire contract negotiations have been delayed because of COVID. And I haven't heard another date of when we might meet again. But I'll turn the floor over to Michelle if she's on the line for a fire department update.
Hi there. A fire department update. You hopefully got the memo I sent you. No COVID transports yet. Everybody's gone through training on COVID. We did COVID hazard pay for April and May. That's going to be ending at the end of May. Our expenses have been submitted to AFD, and then Manch has been working in the EOC a few days a week to help with logistics. And then our Girdwood division and emergency services sort of was demobilized until there's an uptick in cases. And we're buying, after yesterday's call, we ended up transporting somebody out of Winter Creek, who then all declared that they had traveled out to the lower 48 and were not quarantining. And they'd been to New York and other places. So we're in the process today of buying a COVID shield for the backcountry litter. So that was kind of disappointing to find out that, we know there's tourists around and apparently nobody is following the quarantine requirements. Burning is currently banned for high fire danger, and we had a super success yesterday with the woodlot. So thanks to Kyle and Christina, we had 32 loads dropped off, which was fabulous. And the next woodlot dates are June 20th, July 18th, and August 15th. And obviously with the type 1 and type 2 team that I'm affiliated with, there's been a lot of discussion of how this summer will be different because of COVID, in terms of not being able to get the lower 48 crews up as fast and safety considerations. So that's why you're seeing some very super aggressive burning regulations, both at the state level and the municipality is because we really can't afford to have a big fire because we'd have to be relying on lower 48 crews. And while we can bring some of them in, there's still a lot of quarantine issues related to all those things. And plus, you can imagine, we normally work in camps that are 600 to 1,200 people, and how fast a COVID issue could spread through a camp. Operational update, we've had 168 calls year to date as of today, and that really started off like with it dropped off during April with everybody isolating. But now that everybody's not isolating, we've had 26 calls since May 1st. So super busy. We switched to our summer training schedule, so we'll be going bi-weekly. We have currently 50 firefighters with 26 residents. Girdwood residents. We're fundraising for replacement water rescue dry suits, and I think we've successfully so far fundraised for 2 out of the 6. And then notable calls, we had 2 Winter Creek rescues, the one yesterday, the one on Mother's Day that required pararescue to come in and pull them out. That was an ankle injury. And then we just got finished with that. We had a car accident, and then, so it was a busy day. That call, car accident, and then we had, I got a call from dispatch saying, could you talk to this child? And this was a 16-year-old that was stuck on a rock at 2,400 feet up on Mount Alyeska in the middle of the night. So we had to call pararescue back to come and lift him off, which was amazing. He was by himself, 16, had driven down, and then decided to climb the mountain and then got stuck. And then we also had that water rescue at Bird Point, which was more young men. This was a bunch of 18-year-olds went out to the rock and partied, and then unfortunately got stuck when the tide came in, and they all swam except for the one. And then we had to go out and bring them back. And he was stuck about 225 feet off the shore. And then, of course, we did have a structure fire in Old Girdwood. That was like a super save. Captain Olson and the crew that day did amazing. Things I'm super thankful for about that was the fact that it happened during the day and not in the middle of the night. Homeowners weren't home. Twirl was amazing as the next door neighbor, and he managed to call 911, even though 911 put him on hold. And he had some problems with 911 because it was super busy that day. He then busted down the door, ran in the Smoky building, and saved 3 dogs that were kenneled up. So super amazing. Rescue by Twirl. We don't recommend people doing that, but it was a good neighbor, good Old Girdwood neighborhood, helping neighbor stuff. And the other good news about that fire is that the structure is still standing, and while it's room and contents, they'll be able to rebuild. And so versus burning it down to the foundation. So we did I think our crews did a fabulous job. We had good support from Anchorage. And we also had, it was amazing, 16 people show up when the call went out. So that's like all Girdwood residents. Almost everybody that's on the fire department in Girdwood happened to be home at that moment in time and come down and did an amazing job. So super proud of the crews. I'm super proud of everybody, all the work they've been doing for the last week, which we've had these crazy calls, but they've all performed like at a super optimum level, and super proud of everybody. So other than that, on CERT, we've had 5 CERT calls to date. So 3 missing persons searches, 1 COVID PPE gathering point, and then they did CERT did a wildfire education outreach at the post office last Saturday, and we have 13 members. And so our 2 CERT callouts for this last month, one was for a missing person at mile 87.5, and then also the wildfire education. Any questions?
I'd just like to say again for a huge thank you to all of the work from the fire department over the last week in particular, but really over the last several months. You've had to sort of repivot to a different set of priorities, and I think I can see by those very still-looking people behind you, it's been taken very seriously. And again, thank you for everything you've done in the last week, where it just everything seemed to get crazy very suddenly.
Yeah, I think this, well, thank you. I think this is just, we're headed to summer, right? So we're peaking back up to normal summer thing. I will say that everybody's been super fabulous when they haven't been following the burn regulations, and when we've asked them very nicely to put stuff out, they put stuff out. So that's been good.
Actually, could you say something a little bit more about the burn regulations? Because when I looked at it, it was stricter than I thought it would be.
Yes.
Some of the previous burn regulations.
Starting on Friday or the 15th, whichever day that was, Friday or Saturday, we went into full burn ban mode, which meant no burning whatsoever. Like charcoal grills and barbecues are still okay, but no burning. So fully no burning. So up until that point, it had been the burn regulations where you could be a foot off the ground in a commercial barbecue or a fire structure with a chimney and a smoke arrestor and that. But then it switched. So.
Right. So there's no fire pits at all of any sort.
No fire pits. And fire pits technically haven't been legal for a long time, even though we have a lot of fire pits in Girdwood. They're actually not legal. The regulations that were going since the snow melted were all about being a foot off the ground in a structure. So open fire pits on the ground, although everybody has them, are actually technically not legal. And even though Anchorage Sand and Gravel is putting out like propaganda on how to make one on Facebook, they're not technically legal at any time.
Okay. Any other questions from board members or members of the public?
I'll just say, I want to second what Mike said. A big thank you to the fire department. And I heard there was even a cat that got a life saved by you guys. So.
Oh, the cat.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So there was the great cat rescue of 2020 that happened the other day. I guess a cat got chased by dogs, and we had, it was at a calm period of time. And so we actually had, and luckily we had some AMTs on board that were working that day that are super cat aficionados, I would call them. And so they went to the cat rescue and helped secure the cat and helped the cat before the cat got transported to pet rescue by animal control. So yeah, that was good news too. So yeah, I mean, we've been super busy, I got to tell you, but everything's been sort of ticking along, doing pretty good.
Again, thank you. Not seeing any questions from the public. We'll move on to land use, which is me. We had a record fast land use meeting last week. I think it was like 17 minutes or something, with only one item on the agenda. And we're talking about that tonight, so we probably don't need to reiterate. I'll refer back to the item that Chris Schutte mentioned earlier. It was I think some process delays around the allowing food trucks at the brewery, which through a number of people's efforts we've sort of got uncleared and will be progressing. We aren't holding Housing Working Group or Title 21 Chapter 9 meetings due to COVID. So everything in that area is on hold. Any questions from anybody? I'm not seeing any questions, so we'll move on. Public comment. Persons offering public comment must state their full name, and address. No, I'm covering up. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person and must be on subjects not listed on the agenda. Does anybody have any public comment? Julie, I see your hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thanks. Julie Raymond Jacobian, box 924. I just want to let GBOS and any Girdwood residents who are listening know that I had invited Representative Jennifer Johnston to this meeting and asked her to participate in it. And she never responded to me, which is disappointing in and of itself, but I'm also very disappointed in her for remarks she made last month, specifically about the possibility of an early PFD to aid in economic relief for Alaska residents. Representative Johnston made some comments indicating that our rural Alaska colleagues, neighbors, friends, and family can't be trusted with that kind of infusion of cash, and that it would lead to overwhelming of social services. And I find this not just disappointing, but ignorant and frankly racist. And Representative Johnson is not the kind of person that I want representing me or my community in the state legislature. And I wish she was here to respond to some of this evening. But I encourage you all to learn more about this and to share your thoughts with her directly. I personally hope that she resigns her position. And I've got a link that I will put in the chat box for anyone that's interested that talks more about this situation. And I think it would also be great to hear from this body to censure her as well and make it clear that Girdwood doesn't share these views and that we support our rural neighbors. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments, Julie. Anybody else from the board want to respond? And thank you for the link as well. Okay, I'm not hearing any other requests for public comment. We'll move on to old business. Item 5, discuss GBOS vacancy of seat E and vote to recommend candidate to mayor for Anchorage Assembly appointment. So the process here is nobody ran for seat E, which Christina had been appointed to previously, and nobody offered themselves up as a formal writing candidate. So consequently, no one was elected to that seat and it's currently vacant. We put out a call for nominations and we received 2 nominations from 2 people who were interested. And I think my main comment is we got 2 very well qualified candidates, either of which I think would be excellent additions to the Board of Supervisors. The problem is we can only select one of those. So I would see if anyone is prepared to issue a motion on this topic.
Waiting for somebody else on the board to make a motion. Hearing nobody else, as Mike has expressed at other times, John Littleton has said one of the hardest things you do is when you got to make a decision. There's 2 good decisions or 2 good answers to your decision. You got to make a decision. So I'll make a motion to recommend to the mayor of Anchorage for seat E, Brianna Sullivan.
Do I hear a second from anybody?
I second the motion, James Glover.
Thanks, James. Any discussion from board members?
I just want to add to what both of you said, that it is it's tough to make these decisions when it's a good problem to have when you have multiple people interested, but it is hard to make the decision when you have good candidates. We do have 2 seats opening next year in April, so I would just encourage anyone else to apply at that time. And yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, and there are many other opportunities, obviously, for involvement in the community in our various committees and subcommittees. And I'd recommend anybody get involved if they feel they have the time and energy and interest. There's definitely a lot of things that can be done here, and I think Girdwood is renowned, definitely among in Anchorage across the municipality, as a place where we ourselves get things done. We're seen as very active, and when we have problems, we don't just throw up our hands and ask someone else to solve it. We try and get into it and solve it ourselves. The police is obviously the best example of that, but there are many smaller examples as well. So again, that's due to, I think, the strength of the community in general, not just people on the board. Obviously, everyone who supports us, everyone who comes to meetings, everyone who listens on the radio, everyone who votes. So thank you to everyone for your involvement at whatever level you're able to do that. There's a motion and a second. Any other comments from the board? Okay, any other discussion from the public? Okay, hearing none, I will call for the vote. Can you do a roll call for us, please, Kyle?
Yes. Aaron Boone,
In favor?
Jerry Fox,
Yes.
James Glover,
Yes.
Mike Edgington.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Make that 4.
4-0.
4-0. I'm used to the 5. So.
If it was 5, we wouldn't be doing this.
I know. I'm sorry.
Okay, so congratulations and welcome, Brianna, and thank you very much indeed to Cheyenne as well for expressing an interest. And we know you, we know you're very capable, and we look forward to working with you on various things in the future. Okay, item 6, 2021 budget cycle. Discuss meeting dates for 2021 budget work sessions, all 3 of them, and the GBOS nonprofit grant presentation meeting. Kyle, can you take this?
Yes. I hate to say it, but we're back in budget cycle again. OMB sent us the calendar for this year and have given us the sort of the deadlines for our budget meetings. And so we need to have most things wrapped up by August. And so we want to set the agenda or the budget cycle for that. So we're looking at meetings in July and early August, mid-July, end of July. These would be the work session budget meetings. By June, we'll try to have you an initial proposal for the budgets, but they probably will be refined as we get closer to the work sessions. And so we're looking at July 14th and 15th as possible meetings, one of those days, then followed by July 28th and 29th as the next possible meetings, followed by August 11th and 13th. We will send, for the board members, we will send out a doodle poll to find out which of those days work for you. And then in September, we would look at the nonprofit presentation, grant presentations in September for that year. So that's what we're getting the cycle going and then trying to stay current with the budget process for the municipality.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I'd just like to say I know it seems like it gets earlier every year, but the budget sessions have actually been really productive the last couple of years. So thank you for keeping us engaged early.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, not hearing any. We will move on to. There's no decision to be made, I should say, just to clarify on number 6. We'll just set up meetings in the future. Item 7, year-end review of 2019 GBOS nonprofit recreation grants. Again, Kyle.
So at our budget review meeting, we didn't give you a chance to give you these reports, but tonight they're included in the packet, and there's always a request for to review how the grants were used for the year. So I'm gonna let Margaret speak to this a little bit and add some points. She's here, social distancing, so I'll turn the computer towards her so you can see her.
Hello. Mostly, I think the information is in the packet, and probably taking a look at it in order to be prepared at this point for any questions you might want to ask the grantees this coming year, because they're typically the same groups that come through. So if you find anything in these reports that you're looking for further answers to, I know that Mike, you were interested in perhaps initiating a conversation about how best to tailor the grant application so that it more equally matches how funds are being used, so that the questions and the answers match each other. So these reports might also be used for that. originally we were planning on having that budget review session before I started sending out the grant contracts for the 2020 grant so that we could ask those questions of the grantees before we pushed forward on this year's, but we moved along. Other things got slowed down by COVID, but we didn't think that those grants really should be part of that. So as far as each of the reports, you know, the purpose of this is to show that they used the funds the way that they had told you they were going to in their application, and just showing where the work is getting done.
Thank you, Margaret. Any questions from the board? I'm gonna paraphrase badly what Margaret said about my feelings on this. I think we, you know, I think it's a great program. I think we need to do a better job in the future, if for next year, about aligning the way we're requesting people apply for the grants with the way they're really being used. I think there's a little bit of a sometimes squeezing a square peg into a round hole, or maybe the other way around, when it comes to the application. And I'd like to make the application simpler and more aligned. But at the same time, we still have to be responsible about spending the taxpayers' money. So I think when we look through these reports, I'd appreciate it if supervisors can think about that, about how we can do a better job for future applications. I say that doesn't apply obviously to this year, but it does to next year. Okay, any other comments from the board or members of the public? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. So let's move on to item number 8, Arlberg Avenue repave project, the 35% plans and engineer cost estimate. I think this again from Kyle.
Yes, so where I last left you was the presentation of the repave. This project would be to grind and repave Arlberg from the Day Lodge parking lot to the Alyeska Resort Service entrance. It's right before the last guardrail, basically where we finished the last repave section 4 years ago. And so this would be grinding up 4 inches of asphalt. Within this section, there are the original 2 inches that were installed, and then an overlay of another 2 inches that were put on. But the section is deteriorating. We're constantly patching it every summer. So this would be a grind, and then we regrade that recycled asphalt out to make a new subsurface, and then pave over that. The shoulders would be widened a bit, and then there would be increased asphalt on the inside corners where we see a lot of erosion from people cutting the corners, especially in the winters where they can't really tell where the lane is. So we would strengthen those corners there in that aspect. The engineer estimate in front of you, it's a 2-part, a Schedule A and a Schedule B, which means B would be an alternate addition added if we can afford it. But the primary Schedule A would be the grind and repave and striping of the road. And then if we have enough funding, we would do the removal and install of new guardrail within that section. The guardrail would also match the desire of the community when it was originally installed. It would be sort of the brown, rusted look, brown to more mix in with the environment in that location. The one thing that has been added to this, we had found in the last week, is that the municipal surveyor is requiring monuments at a certain footage throughout the whole project. Those monuments help with the development of adjoining lots. And so we received an estimate on that today, and that would be an additional cost of $10,000 to have that surveyed and those monuments installed. Currently, those monuments are there right now, but you can't actually access them because they were paved over during the overlay. So you have to find them with a metal detector. So it's a standard procedure, and it was something that was overlooked by the engineer, but we received it in comments from the surveyor. And so that would add 10,000 to it. So for a total, if we were able, according to the engineer estimate, and keep in mind this is the engineer estimate, it's not saying what the market is bidding right now. It could go higher, it could go lower, but this is just based on past experiences of paving within Girdwood and also within Anchorage over the last 3 years. So if both of the projects were to be out, the engineers estimating 549 and then adding in the survey work would bring us up to 559. So 560 is the estimate. So tonight we're looking for the board's approval to move forward with this estimate. We have the money available within our capital fund and to approve us taking this out to bid. And we would also have a contingency if we have high bids. We probably would have to call for an emergency meeting of GVOS to approve it if we're over 560.
Thanks, Kyle. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have one question. Out of the 560,000, how much is it that's left over from the other Arlberg project that would be going towards that?
So of the 560, we would, and what Aaron's question is that we have grant money left over from the Arlberg extension, and that's a state grant. We have 112,000 left from that. So the 112,000 would be applied to this. The rest would come out of our savings that we have accrued for road projects.
And I have a question. So this would happen like August?
Yeah, so we would try to shoot for August to have it happen. We're working in tandem with the resort as they have started their spa project, and they have actually found, sounds like they found most of the material on site that they'll be able to use for this project. So they're actually going to do a ton of trucking compared to, like, for the Arlberg extension, everything was trucked in and out. The resort is keeping all their X material on site, and they think they have good, suitable material on site that they can X out to put into the new project. So their trucking should be minimal. And with the way the summer is right now and the way the tourism looks, I'll be honest, I've been on Arlberg quite a bit the last week, and it is the quietest I've ever seen it for May. So we would hope that we could use that to our advantage in August.
And do you think it's a good use of the money versus using it toward the fish culverts at this time?
Well, the reason I think it's a good use is because we have that grant, and the grant can be used towards the road. Most likely, if we don't use that grant funding this year, the state's going to recall it because of the fiscal situation.
So if we made a motion, are we making a motion for 560? Are we making a motion for 560 minus 112?
I would say you make a motion for 560. That you're using the funding that's available within your account.
But I think to Jerry's question, the grant money isn't available to us, is it? Or is it available to us?
No, the grant money is available to the Girdwood service area.
Okay.
But
so that's money.
It's tied to Arlberg Road only. So
understood. And so is it actually 560 plus contingency, or do we just approve? Because if we get a bid of exactly 560, we'll still have to put aside money for contingency funds.
Yes.
Previous projects.
One of the comments I would make, it'd be kind of good to have those numbers on the screen. But I've gone back and forth to find them, but
they're in the packet on page 24, right. I think.
Yeah.
Let me bring it up.
If you don't mind.
Why is it that we wouldn't subtract off 112 from the 560?
But I think the way Carl explained it is that money is available within the service area accounts. It's just money which is tied specifically to Arlberg Road. So that money is there, but would disappear. So we don't have to allocate what accounts, sub-accounts this is being spent from. But because that 112 is part of our GVSA accounts now.
Oh, okay. I see.
That's my understanding. Carl can clarify if that's correct or not.
Yeah, the grant money is still under the control of GBOS to use. But sorry, I'm trying to get to it here. Why did I go past it?
I think it's page 24 I'm seeing on.
Here's the problem with sharing screens sometimes, especially when we're running bandwidth to do the meeting, is sometimes these things won't appear. I'll bring it up, but it may not. Oops, did I lose it? Yeah, sorry. I don't know if you can see it on my end. It's blank on my end.
I'm seeing, I'll hear it.
The page right ahead of it shows up, but then
yeah, it's blank. But we have it in the packet, as you say, Kyle, and I've looked it over. So again, just to be clear though, the 112 is already in our budget. In other words, okay.
Yeah.
So
112. So there's roughly 612,000 within the GBOS capital fund, and 112 of it is a state grant tied directly and only to be used for Alberg Road.
Got it. Now I got it.
So again, I go back to my question. My understanding is in previous, when we did this for the fire station and the flashing lights, we actually had to allocate the cost plus 20%. I believe that may have been after we actually received bids and we committed to it. So, you know, I optimistically, if the bids come in significantly lower than these estimates, then we would still be within this 560 for the actual cost plus 20%. Although, as we saw with the flashing lights, that's not always the case. They come in low.
So in this case, you could, and that's a good point. And this engineering estimate doesn't show the contingency cost. And so if we were to do a contingency add-on of 20%, that'd be 112 that we would add to this as a contingency fund for any unknown factors.
It also doesn't include the project management costs, which we get charged.
Project costs are already tied up. Actually, that was part of the development for the plans. And
okay, great.
So that money's already encumbered, and that's already been approved by GBOS. So that's
okay. Thank you.
The Tay company is handling that.
I do remember that. Now you've mentioned it, I do recall that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to allocate, effectively encumber our capital costs to this project.
Okay, I will make a motion, and I think I'm making a motion to use the capital for Alberg Extension repave, not Alberg Extension, just the Alberg Road repave. And I think we're looking for 560.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Would anyone like to second that?
Second.
Okay, that was Aaron, second. Any discussion on the motion or further discussion on the motion?
I guess I just wonder, I mean, I'm curious if we didn't have this grant money, how long we would wait to do this project. Because we'll pretty much spend all of our capital account for roads, right? I just want to make sure that it's the most critical thing, and we all think that we should do it now.
From a maintenance perspective, we spent a lot of time keeping that road together, and we've seen success with the repave that we did a few years ago there between where this project would end and where it goes to Alyeska Resort. And then having this money in hand for the grant, I think it gives you at a discount cost to complete this. It's pretty primary road. It gets hit pretty hard. We hit it hard with blades in the winter. And unfortunately, when they did the overlay, it wasn't a benefit because it just overlaid a road that was already previously cracking, and the cracks all came right through the overlay. And so we spent a lot of time out there just doing little pothole patches, which at a shot is costing us anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a summer to do these repairs, as we just try to keep the road together. So in this case, you know, the only real long stretch of paved road that we maintain is at a crossroads. I do agree there's other things within that we still are going to have to accomplish, like the fish passages and things along those lines. But at this point, having that grant money in hand, I hate to lose it unless the board didn't feel it was a priority.
I mean, it's effectively a 20% discount on the project we get by using that grant money. And I believe it is, well, yes, I'm sure it's the most heavily used road that GVSA has responsibility for, because obviously Alyeska Highway is the state road. I imagine it's much more than any of the other roads we have responsibility for. So I will be voting in favor of this. Any other comments from the board?
No, I just fall in behind Kyle there from a maintenance standpoint. I think it should be a priority.
Thank you, James. Any other comments from the public or the board? Okay, hearing none, no raised hands. I'll call for the vote. Kyle, can you do roll call for us, please?
Yes. James Glover.
In favor.
Jerry Fox.
In favor.
Aaron Boone.
In favor.
Mike Edgington.
Yes.
4-0 passes.
Thank you. We can move on to item number 9, update on Girdwood community garden plots. Amanda Sassy. If Amanda is online.
I'm not sure if Amanda is there. I did email with Amanda earlier today. She said that they've hit some roadblocks and they're not pursuing this at this time. So hopefully we'll be able to get things going. I know that one of the things that came up was the location here at the library wasn't being supported by the Muni primarily because of the parking and just not wanting to take away a current use in order to put in something else without, I think, replacing. But Kyle and I had some other ideas on locations, and so, you know, we're definitely interested in helping to find a location for community gardens. They also had some funding problems, so like I said, I'm not certain what the actual final delay is, but we hope to keep working with her and find a location.
Okay, so should we keep this on the agenda for next month unless we hear otherwise?
No, I think we're going to take it off.
Okay, so maybe revisit this in the fall?
Perhaps.
You'll see where they're at if there's still a strong interest for more gardens.
Okay, but I think it was a little bit of a stretch getting this happening this summer. So, okay, understood. I'm going to move on to new business, unless there's any comments from the public on this. Any other comments? I'm not seeing anyone with raised hands. I don't see anyone on video links. So move on to
Hey, Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle, could you please put up the agenda?
There you go.
Thanks.
Yep.
So move on to new business, item number 10, agenda item LUC 2003-4, request for LUC recommendations for GBOS resolution of support of conditional use permit for subdivision property at 755 Alyeska Highway. Patty and Brent Wilbanks.
Yes, Brett Wilbanks on the telephone.
Hi, Brett. Can you speak to this for us?
Right. So I am trying to divide my lot with a property line to basically half of it is accessed by Alyeska Highway, and when I put a property line in here to subdivide my lot, then it makes my fourplex go above the allowed number of units per dwelling units per acre, which would require a conditional use permit. So I'm going through the process. of trying to obtain a conditional use permit in order to subdivide my lot.
Okay, so where do you stand in that process? What's planning's position on it?
So I have applied for and received a preliminary plat approved in municipality. Jones Division. I have two accesses, one from Sproat Road and one from Alyeska Highway. And the issue before me is that in order to put a property line in my lot anywhere, I would have to get a conditional use permit because of the density of my 4-unit existing building. There's no plans on adding additional apartments or anything of that nature to that Alyeska Highway access. That's already been developed, and there's sort of a natural bench break for a property line. So it means that I have to go through a conditional use permit approval process in order to put any line on my property at all.
Can you remind me how big the property is?
It's like 1.8 acres, and the division I'm proposing for the existing building is like 0.6 acres for 4 units.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused by this because my recollection from the other issues along that section on Gunnysack was that you could have 4 units on a parcel which was just over like an acre and a square foot.
Yeah, correct. But as the lot has a bench to it, it rises as you go up. And so as we place a property line on this natural geographic bench break, it provides a division for the existing building that puts us into a density that requires the conditional use permit.
Okay, understood. Yeah. The rules weren't written for the reality on the ground.
Correct. So it's a long process, and it's involved, and it's sort of an on-property division that I'm trying to make within the lot. Without this is after a project. This is not ahead of a project, so to speak.
Understood. Okay. So, so do you have
I have a comment,
Sorry.
Mike.
Sure.
I live right next door to this, so I kind of understand it. And, the 4 units, we've been worried about the development down the road. Those 4 units, you would not even know they're there. So those, they don't have a problem with short-term rentals. They don't have a problem with partiers there. And so, Brett, just to make people more comfortable, you're planning to subdivide, I believe. You'll have your 4 units on one side. On the other side, just explain what you're planning to do on the other side.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I'm putting in a garage now, and I want to put in just a small single-family house. But in order to do that, I need to divide the lot so that the city is happy with the number of dwelling units that I have on my lot. So it makes it very clear for planning and zoning if I actually have subdivided my lot, because the complications arise due to the fact that there's 4 units in a building. It's considered a commercial building, and trying to build a house has proved problematic with the city because they cannot understand I'm just trying to do a single family home, and it gets into complications of commercial building. So in order to make it clear, I'm trying to put a single family home back there with a garage. And in order to do that, I need to put a property line in and just divide the lot in 2 for clarity at the city.
And again, I would just express so the neighbors, in case anybody has concern, the existing 4 units access the Alyeska Highway. They do not access Sproat Road.
I have a
Yes,
question.
sir.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yes, that's correct. Thank you for that. And go ahead with your question.
I was just curious if you currently have access from Sproat Road.
Yes.
Okay. And the fourplex would be on the 0.6 acres if it's subdivided the way that you'd like it to be. Is that right?
Yes, correct. And it has its own access from Alyeska Highway. That's the 755 Alyeska Highway. And that's just existing and would not change.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, and again, thanks for answering the questions. I have a much better understanding of what you're doing now. So, from a process point of view, this is new business. So the next presentation would be at LUC as old business. And that typically is the community meeting that happens before it would go in front of public hearing in one of the municipal bodies. So do you have a hearing date or anything? And is that in front of P&Z or platting?
Not at this point. So the preliminary plat was approved, and right now we're working on the final plat package. And that's where we are in process, was to get on the agenda as old business for the land use committee.
Okay, great, understood. So do you have an idea of when this is likely to be back on land use for actual action?
We don't have a firm date here, but we're probably looking at this summer or late this summer.
Okay, thank you.
So just for clarity and process, when the packet comes in, we will call Brett and ask him to come back and make a presentation. And at that point, Brett, if you would like the board of supervisors to make a resolution of support, we can ask that for that action to happen on the agendas.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep, understood. But that's likely to be sometime this place. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Any other questions from the board or members of the public? Okay. Thank you very much, Brett, for explaining that. I appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you at LUC and then GBOS over the summer.
Thank you.
So the next item is agenda item LUC 2005-4. I'm not sure this is from 2005. Request for LUC recommendation for GBOS letter of non-objection to the Herbal Cash LLC marijuana license renewal. Brent Cast presenting. Over to you, Brent.
Hello, Mike. Yes, this is Brent Cars. Here to kind of give a brief update on the Herbal Cash. So kind of just a brief overview, as we've been open for about 10 months or so. So we're coming up on about a year. During that time, we haven't had any kind of negative feedback from any customers or members of the community. The only real changes since I was going in front of the board before was that we're getting ready to kind of expand hours. We were initially hoping to expand them the beginning of the summer, but due to the kind of COVID outbreak, we delayed that expansion. So we're hoping to extend them sometime later this summer. Other than that, I did recently obtain approval from the Muni and the state to allow curbside pickup and exterior window sales. But currently I'm not implementing those changes. I just kind of want to be prepared for the future, or if we have a possibility of a second spike, something along those lines. There's a lot of logistics that are kind of involved with that I don't really want to use unless I really need to. Other than that, business has been pretty steady and we're doing pretty good, relatively speaking. So all in all, I guess I'm requesting for a letter of non-objection from the GBOS to renew the Herbal Cash license.
Thank you. So I do have one kind of technical question. I'm just a bit confused about this. You've only been open 10 months, but the 2-year license runs out in August. Something's not quite.
The 2-year license for what?
Isn't it the license runs out in August, I think, or the license has to be renewed in August?
Yeah, each year I believe I have to renew the license.
Oh, okay. I thought it was every other year. Okay. Well, actually, I think it works. I think my math is just off. It's
Okay.
too long staring at a computer screen and Zoom meetings all day.
Fair enough.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none. Any questions from members of the public? Okay, I don't hear any. Again, thank you for. I mean, my sense, I haven't heard any problems or complaints or criticisms about your business or the preceding one at the same location. I think I think everything has gone surprisingly well, definitely compared to other parts of the municipality where there are issues. So I think that shows that it's been run responsibly. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd say I agree with that, Mike.
Okay. Again, any other comments? Hearing none, I think we will move on to our next item, which is just anything about written reports. Any comments on the written reports that are in the meeting packet? I think my question earlier was about the hand tram, which I think has already been answered.
One thing a highlight we'll mention is we did get a KMTA grant for the Virgin Creek Falls.
Excellent.
So the committee awarded that. We do have to go through a 406 archaeological review on that, but KMTA is going to help us through that process. We'll need to accomplish that before we get started. Most likely, we'll see what we can get done this year. With the delay with hiring, we may be behind, but we may be able to push something into the fall if we can get the study done first.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, I think we can do this by consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Voice vote, I should say. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.